All right, we got the go ahead. We've already blessed the meeting and asked God for guidance. So thank y'all for being here. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. For committee members, I know that we don't have a lot of changes, but we did still want to bring the agencies in just to kind of go through it and see if anyone has any questions and make sure that everything is like it needs to be. Um, so at this time, we're going to start with Department of Revenue. Commissioner Curry, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Right here with you, Mr. Chairman. How you doing today? Can you hear me? Mr. Chairman, can you see me? Can you hear me?
Commissioner King, you want to jump in line? We're having some technical difficulties here, and welcome. I'll turn the floor over to you while we try to get this figured out and get everybody else zoomed in.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is why I wanted to come in person, just in case to make, something falls through and we can make our presentation. Thank you very much for the opportunity to not only do this presentation, but I get the opportunity to answer any questions that the committee members may have. Thank you for opportunity to discuss the agency's FY 2022 budget request. As I said the last time we spoke, I am incredibly thankful for the one-time funds you provided me last year. That helped our agency not only retool up and without knowing it at the time, it really gave us the tools so we could go and operate and support and serve Georgia through the pandemic. And so I'm very appreciative for those one-time funds. It really helped us a great deal. As we look at FY22 budget, I only have a few items that I'd like to bring to the highlight. On line 29.3.1, you'll see that we're returning just under $77,000 back to the general fund. And these funds had initially been budgeted to make up for the expected loss of revenue in the manufactured housing inspections that we are required to perform. However, as I explained to you when I presented the FY 2021 amended budget, we were able to use our technology that you helped us to and give our inspectors. We were able to use technology and really reconfigure how we inspected those manufactured homes while maintaining social distance and keeping our employees and the employees of the plants where we're operating safely. And so we were able to still conduct those inspections as required. I will also highlight on line 29.3.2, you'll see that we're returning about $100,000 back to the general fund. In this revenue, we normally receive from nursing home inspections through the contract that we have with DCH. These inspections were temporarily halted, temporarily paused as nursing homes became COVID-19 hotspots, and we're working through DCH to make sure that as those nursing homes open up, we start our inspections again. We foresee sometime around March to be able to start getting those restarted again. However, we expect those inspections to resume, as I say, in March, which means we'll be collecting this revenue and we can return those additional dollars back to the general fund. On line 29.5.1, we have requested an increase of just over $2.4 million in the special fraud funds. Now, these funds are appropriated by the General Assembly, yet they are funded entirely by the industry, by the insurance industry in Georgia, and collected directly by our agency. Then we return those funds to the Treasury. We're introducing legislation this year to simplify this convoluted process that allow us to instead collect these funds directly from insurers, from the companies that we regulate. It's important to note that the special fraud funds can only be used to investigate and tackle insurance fraud in Georgia. According to the FBI, the total cost of insurance fraud is estimated at over $40 million every year. That means that insurance fraud costs every family in the United States between $400 to $700 annually in higher premiums. And according to the Federal Trade Commission, Georgia ranks number 5 in the country with over $71.8 million in total fraud losses last year. As I said previously, these funds are funded directly by Georgia's insurance industry, which fully supports our efforts to combat fraud. In fact, the majority of the complaints and referrals that the officer receives come from the insurance industry. Our online fraud reporting system receives between 8,000 to 10,000 complaints each year from both consumers and insurers. And currently, the staffing levels that we are only able to touch half of these potential cases. Our fraud investigations division has currently handled 478 cases spread across 11 investigators, which averages about 43 cases per agent per month. This increase in funding would allow us to bring 15 additional new positions. 12 of them would be post-certified fraud investigators. That would allow us to touch over 90% of our monthly referrals and bring caseloads down to about 35 cases per agent per month. Again, these dollars do not come from the general fund, but rather paid directly by the industry. I thank you again for this opportunity to present you a budget request, and I thank you for the continued support of our agency. We're committed to protecting Georgia's consumers and tackling all types of insurance fraud across our state. Your support today helps us accomplish that goal. I would now be glad to answer any questions you may have, and my Chief Financial Officer, Chad DeBella, is here to help me with some of the technical aspects of your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. You've talked about the special fraud, but could you maybe just tell the committee it's kind of the same type deal about your fire safety program and kind of the creative things that y'all have done there and the money that the area brings in, and just kind of, if you will, just tell them about that.
People don't realize that we support almost every fire department outside especially outside the large metro areas. And we bring fire arson investigators. We bring K9 that specializes on the detection of arson, capabilities that local fire departments, especially outside the metro Atlanta areas, do not have. So we bring that support to these fire departments. And unfortunately, because we have so many few investigators supporting it, our folks spend about 4 to 5 hours behind the windshield of a car responding to an incident. By giving additional positions to hire fire investigators, my purpose is to locate these investigators in the regions so they could cut down the amount of time that they're responding. So this is specifically to support rural fire departments with the technical expertise to investigate, properly investigate and prosecute arson investigations. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, that was well along the needs that you had there, and they do some other stuff too, though, in that
Yes,
same area that help generate revenue.
Well, sir, yes. I mean, we have not only that, but we also have the plan review. We help a great deal in this department of safety fire positions. We inspect buildings. Right now, we can only inspect new construction. And I'm afraid that the where we are is that we're not inspecting all existing, buildings that I think that's where the risk is at. So by getting this, the request for additional inspectors and investigators, we can increase, not only cover the state regionally better, but not only take care of new construction, but also take care of existing construction that we are responsible for investigations.
Gotcha. Okay, got a question here. Number 4, Chairman Barr.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your work. Have a question on, so in this committee, we continually hear about turnover and kind of stats in general in the Southeast.
Yes.
The special fraud folks what does that department look like? I definitely, it does an incredible job for us, and we need more. But what is that? How are those folks? What's the turnover like, and what's the average salary, if you don't mind asking?
I'll let Chad answer the starting salary, but this is our strategy has been to using my existing relationships, not only with sheriffs, as a former police chief, I have existing relationships, and by pushing and hiring local, seasoned investigators that will work in the communities that they serve, and having them based out of sheriff stations, sheriff's departments or local police departments. For example, in Albany, I have a great relationship with the Albany police chief. We served together in the military. He's given me a desk space so I can have an investigator that lives in Albany, that focuses, because these investigations are highly technical.
Yeah.
They're not, because local police departments are overwhelmed with just handling general crime. And to be able to be effective in investigating these very complicated cases, we have to have somebody with the skill sets to investigate and then prepare the cases so district attorneys will go after these individuals. Because
Right.
one individual is not only affecting one victim, traditionally they're affecting multiple victims. So our strategy has been using the relationships that we have with the Sheriff's Association and with sheriffs and police chiefs, and letting them use their police stations to base out of. We can cut down the amount of time. We can reach victims. We can interview witnesses. We can be a lot more effective instead of trying to burn, windshield time between Atlanta and those communities. So that has been our strategy. Our turnover, I had to revamp that department from scratch because we had some severe challenges in people's ability to present effective cases and being professionalized. So I brought a brand new director of investigations. We have she's a former captain of the Cobb County Police Department that retired. We hired her, and we were building an agency from scratch. So we have adequate coverage in the Metro Atlanta area.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to push out to make sure that we have adequate coverage across the regions, so we can be more effective. We can touch and we can support more victims and more local police departments. I hope that answered your question. I'll let Chad talk about the starting salary, sir.
Yes, sir. I follow up if I may.
Yes.
And that, to my point, right, is we want to make sure we take care of these folks. And I think this is a critical area. And going forward, I'm definitely open to listening to you guys and super appreciate your leadership in this area.
Well, I appreciate that very much, sir. And the key is we're going after local talent that lives in those communities, that will serve those communities, and they're not spending their day traveling across Georgia.
Perfect.
People don't realize how big our state is. It's pretty big. But the things that we're trying is hire folks with the skill sets and then invest in their education, because these cases are very technical.
Mm-hmm.
And the insurance industry has been good to us. They refer the majority of these cases to us. The problem is I don't have the density of investigators so we can give justice to those quality cases that we get.
I appreciate your paradigm of leadership in this area and look forward to seeing these 15 extra boots on the ground.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, God.
I think Chad was going to talk about a little bit about the starting salary.
That'd be great. Sure.
Yes, sir. We currently have it set up tiered,
Okay.
so that way they give opportunity to move up and give them training goals. And so in between that tier, it's between 45 and 57,
Mm-hmm.
which I think compares well to other agencies. So we really set it up for success in that area.
Very good. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Representative Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to follow up on what the chairman had asked in terms of your fire inspectors. How many do you currently have, and how many are we looking to add to that in terms of your support for rural fire departments?
Chad, I might need you to help me out with the latest count. I just talked to him, but I just approved.
No, I was just curious more than anything.
I can tell you I have 4 K9s, so that's spending a lot of attention because
so you really are spread out pretty thin.
we doubled the number of K9 and because that there becomes significantly important to local fire departments because they don't have that skill set. And sorry, if you allow me, I'll have to go get the latest count.
Absolutely, thank you.
I know I had minimum and I've located them regionally. And like they say, I need more of them. That so I can get better coverage across outside of Metro Atlanta.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you and your service.
We're asking for 2 more, yeah.
You and your staff are always been accessible to meet our needs and questions throughout the year. So thank you for your support.
And sir, I can outline our needs are incredibly large, but we are trying to be modest and be a good team player with the rest of our state government and asking for incremental increases so we can manage, not only so we can get better coverage, so we can properly train them, but also we don't want to break the bank. And at the end of the day, that's really what we're focused on.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner, and I know you probably don't have an answer to this. But I guess there's no update on our former commissioner and that situation that you can talk about, is there, by chance?
Sir, I purposely stayed out of that. Like my old sergeant major used to tell me, there's a reason why your windshield's 10 times larger than your rear mirror, so you can stay focused forward instead of looking back. So I'm letting the competent
gotcha.
authorities deal with that. I know I needed more money so I could pay for his salary, which kind of chips me really in a very uncomfortable way, and it ought to upset all of us.
That's right. That's right. Well, don't know till I ask. So just
Thank you.
just checking there. So, Commissioner, I don't see any other questions. So I think you're good to go. Thank you for the job that you're doing over there, and I know I've seen progress, and that's always good. You've done a phenomenal job. Appreciate what all your team does over there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And we want to be responsive to not only all members of this committee, but if you have anything that you want our experts in insurance regulation to take a look at and provide you some, what the effects are on the industry, we stand ready to support you all.
Good deal. Well,
Thank
thank you for being here. Appreciate the presentation. We'll be in
Thank you.
touch.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. We're going to try to pick back up with the Department of Revenue. Commissioner Curry, are you online with us now?
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. I don't know if it was on your end or my end, but I rebooted my computer, so maybe if it was on my end, we got it straight.
Well, I was making a call down to the farmer's market to make sure they had sold all their cabbage this week. So
Well, if they
before I
didn't, you
let you
call me. I'll
speak.
pick up another case.
Good deal. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Our FY22 budget for the Department of Revenue is very similar to what we presented a couple of weeks ago for FY21 budget. To highlight the changes for the committee, the governor's FY22 budget adds additional funding to 3 areas. The first, as you may remember, the $25 million increase in the Forest Land Protection Act, the FLIPA grants. I told you a couple of weeks ago, this also helps the department because we retain 3% of the funds upon distribution to help fund the Qualified Timber Property Program, the QTP program. The second increase is $210,000 for the additional resources that Department of Revenue needs to continue to implement Senate Bill 375 from 2020, which is the bill that now requires licensure and taxation on vapor products. Of course, the final item in the statewide increase is a teacher's retirement system. So this year is a very simple year. I know $25 million don't sound very simple, but it is just a flow through. It's not something we get to use. It goes back to the cities and counties and local communities. With that being said, I'll be happy to turn it over and see if you've got any questions for us. And I didn't mention, I've got Ken Nash and Keisha Beavers, our finance department folks, on the call with us. So if you got any questions I can answer, I feel certain they can help us find an answer.
Okay. I guess I've got one maybe to start it off, Commissioner. If I remember right on the fiscal note that went with the vaping legislation, it was around 1.3 million. And that's not the number that you have in your column. And are you going to be able to do what we've told you need to do and have to do with that amount of money? Or I'd hate to, take away from something else to look after vape or not, goes both ways.
Yes, sir. We've presented our budget. It's been approved by OPB and that's the governor's budget. We're going to make it work. That being said, there are challenges with the vape legislation. I've talked to the ATD director. He's assured me that he can shift some resources around and still cover what he's already doing. And we're going to do our very best to implement that legislation and make sure it's enforced appropriately.
Okay. All right. On the FLIPA funds, just out of curiosity, I know we've had to catch those up from time to time, and it's kind of just a flow through type situation. How do the counties manage with that when it's not fully funded?
Well, it's a first come, first serve. So they get online and they apply for it. And when that $25 million runs out, it's not pro rata. So it's not like if 100 counties apply for it and we divide it up evenly, it's first come, first serve. In the past, there's been additional funding, I guess, probably mid-year budget that was given to that program. For FY20, I believe it was $39 million, somewhere around $39 million was allotted to that program. But typically there's 25 million allotted the first time. Then we see what kind of applications come in. And if the legislature wants to add funding to that line item, we then give out the rest of it to the cities and counties. But if they don't receive it, if it's not there to give to them, there's nothing to give. Now we do put them on the list, and if there's additional funding the following year, then we can go back and give. But that's, Mr. Chairman, that's never the case. We do keep a running toll, but once that money is exhausted, there's never any money next year to go back and make them whole.
And that process is now done pretty much electronically, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's, and I think you had told us that you'd had pretty good response and it was working pretty well from when we last talked.
Yes, sir. We're trying to move everything here at the Revenue Department electronic, from motor vehicles and web renewals and everything that we touch, for everything, every service we provide for taxpayers. We're trying our best to go electronic. We're trying to encourage our tax commissioners and our taxpayers to receive their motor vehicle notices through email. We're trying to get away from paper. We're trying to be as efficient as possible. But yes, to answer your question, it's been a huge success for us.
Okay, good deal. Any questions from the committee? Commissioner, I don't see any questions. I think they're gonna let you off easy this
Hey,
time.
I appreciate it. I certainly thank you.
All right, well,
I'll bring
thank
you
you.
a pint of that good coleslaw.
There you go. We wanted to get you out of here early. We didn't
All
want to
right.
keep you around. Thank you for the
Good.
job
Call
you're
me if you have any
doing.
question. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you. All right, next we will go to, let's see here, DOAS, Commissioner Atwood. Are you online with us, sir?
We are, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Good deal. We can.
All righty. Well, good afternoon, members of the committee. I am Alex Atwood. I'm the Commissioner of DOAS. And with your permission, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sure you and the committee have had a long day already, I'll refrain from going in all that DOS oversees and the accomplishments we had. I covered that pretty extensively, and I think in our last hearing. And also with me today is Ms. Paulette Petty. She's our Chief Financial Officer, and Mr. Wade Dameron, our Head of Risk Management. We'll be working from the tracking, the budget information on the tracking sheet to page 3 and 4. Give you a second to pull that out. We support the governor's budget recommendations, and this is for relating to, obviously, to the FY22 budget. Ours is very, very simple. On section 12.5.1, we're eliminating the one-time funds to meet the liability in conjunction with the subsequent entry trust funds. We had $1 million were reflected in the FY21 budget, and this change represents the removal of that amount from our base budget. And also on the 12.5.2, which eliminates the one-time funding to meet the liability for the state indemnification fund, we had about 2.7 million was reflected in the FY20 budget, and this change represents the removal of that amount from the base budget. We believe the current available funds will cover the applications that are in process. So with that, Mr. Chairman, it's pretty simple. I'll turn it back over to you and the committee and stand ready to do my best and answer any questions you might have.
Good deal. Well, thank you, sir. And always good to see you.
Good to see you.
Appreciate the job y'all do over there. And this might be a silly question, but I know that we've had a lot of agencies that have had a lot of older vehicles with a lot of problems. And I was just curious, have we had any, has that had any impact on our insurance policy as a state with accidents or faulty vehicles or anything like that?
Well, I don't believe so. We're not aware of any older vehicles impacting our insurance costs. We currently bill about $4 million for our APD, or auto physical damage, and about 40 million plus for liabilities. We can drill down some more. It would take us having to go through, hundreds of lines of data, but we're happy to do it for that. But I'll let Wade in for you. Wade, if you would, if you have any additional information.
Well, and it's just kind of from the point of, I know that newer vehicles have a lot of technology on them now. They let you know when people are beside you and behind you, and those tend to save individual car owners a lot of headache. But I know that our fleet has a lot of older vehicles that do not have that kind of stuff. I was just curious if there was if you saw any kind of trend with accidents in older vehicles versus newer.
I have not as yet, but I will tell you, I briefly mentioned it last time on our policy 10. One thing we're trying to drive, Mr. Chairman, it's a good question. It's not a silly question at all. We're looking at the cost of repair and under our policy 10, and when that cost of repair exceeds the cost of the vehicle, then we're asking the agencies to replace the vehicle. And you're right, our age of our vehicles is fairly is older. And so we're looking very hard at doing that. And we're hoping also, in addition to being more economical overall for the state, it will be one that may impact somewhat on the accidents that we have, the liabilities that we have. And so that's something we're trying to drive down across the board. And it's really Wade and his group have done a great job with our comprehensive loss control program, where he's working with all the agencies to try to do that, along with our fleet management division. Wade, you got anything you can add to it? Hopefully the technology, there you go.
No, sir, nothing additional. We see claims across every year, make, and model, so I wouldn't tell you that at this point, Chairman, that there are any particular trends that we're seeing because of the age of the vehicle.
Okay, good. Just curious. I know that Commissioner, you and I think you, maybe just for the committee, will you let them know? I know we're purchasing a lot of vehicles, and I know there's been some delays when ordering new vehicles. Can you touch on that a minute? Is it Tahoes or something that were?
Yes, sir. It was. I'm going to have to put my specs on here for a second, if you don't mind, but we did. And in fact, a little while ago, I went out to our fleet management folks to drive down, or not fleet management, I'm sorry, surplus property, to drive down some more. We did have some delays in our Chevrolet Tahoes. It looks like out there in the industry, we get a lot of parts, a lot of vehicles being made overseas, that sort of thing. And of course, everybody's impacted with COVID. Under our public safety vehicles, I know our pursuit utility vehicles, our Explorers and such as that, where those are available, as well as our Dodge Durango, our Dodge Chargers, in two other different areas, both the V6 and the V8 were available. In the normal stated purchasing for vehicles, we're looking at, I know our Ford Explorers, our 3.5 liters V6 engines were available. Our Kias were doing quite well as the Ford Expedition. We did have an area with our Chevrolet Colorados that we're looking at a little delay there. Our F-150s V6 flex fuel engine were strongly available, as well as our Ford Transit T150 passenger wagons, and our vans were pretty good. So, but we're working with our suppliers. We're going to move as aggressively as we can about trying to help ensure that those are available for our agencies out there.
Good deal. Well, appreciate that update on that.
Yes.
Any questions from the committee? All right, Commissioner, you're going to get off easy too. So you must have done a good job.
It was odd or followed my other commissioners. I got to watch them a little bit, but I tell you, especially, I had some time to spend with Commissioner King. I think we've got a fine one there, as well as Commissioner Curry. But John and I kind of have similar backgrounds in some areas, and he's representing us well. We work closely with him on a couple of areas, and as well as our good folks at Revenue. So it's an honor to be with him, Mr. Chairman, and be with y'all. And please, if you need anything, if any member of the committee needs anything, if you would like us to come meet with you, and that's every member of the committee, privately, or get information for you, that's what DOAS is here for.
Good deal. Well, thank you, Commissioner. You're doing a great job over there, and your agency's been very responsive to all our requests, and We always appreciate that. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
All right, we've got one more. We saved the best for last. Got Department of Audits and Accounts. Y'all want to come on down to the podium here? Come on in, Greg. We're moving along pretty fast here. We don't have a lot of changes, or a lot of requests, I should say. So we saved the best for last.
Good afternoon. I may break the mold on the requests.
That's why we're here.
All right. Can I take the mask off?
Yes, sir, please.
All right. And I apologize up front. I'm fighting the back end of a cold and a nagging cough, so I'm going to try to get through this today. So, but thank you for allowing me to be here today and present our budget for the FY22 budget. So I'm Greg Griffin. I'm the state auditor. With me is Carol Schwindy, our Director of Administration, and our CFO. So if we've got time, since we didn't meet with you for the 21 budget, I wanted to just share with you a few of the accomplishments from the department for the past year. That's okay? Time
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right, very good. So in fiscal year 20, we issued around 250 financial audit or financial related reports covering various industry sectors across state government, institutions of higher education, and local school boards. We issued 20 performance audits and special examinations. We performed over 800 quality control reviews of financial audit reports of local governments and another 400 reviews of financial statements of nonprofit organizations that contract with state agencies. We issued 84 fiscal notes and retirement certifications. Our sales ratio team, which is a group of real estate appraisers, validated almost 450,000 property sales to prepare the statewide equalized adjusted property tax digest. We are still managing the immigration reporting for the state and had over 2,400 entities report to us this past year. And we host the Open Georgia website. And over fiscal year 20, we had over 375,000 different users access the website. As far as COVID impacts go, we have had minimal impacts on our staff and the way we work from the pandemic. We had technology in place prior to the pandemic that supported a remote working environment since we were already working out at client sites. And the larger impacts that we experienced were related to the shutdown of client offices, which tended to extend the duration of our planned audits. From a workload perspective, our workload has increased significantly due to the inflow of CARES Act funds to our state agencies and local school boards. We saw increased workload demands in FY21 because we are required to audit those funds under the Federal Single Audit Act. We expect additional workload demands in FY22 due to greater dollars being spent this year in FY21 that will need to be audited in FY22. And we also anticipate new stimulus funds that are likely to be passed by the new administration. In terms of our budget, and you have our tracking sheet, right? It's page 1 of the tracking document. So in terms of our fiscal year 22 budget, while the tracking document shows small transfers of funds between programs, we submitted, as requested to OPB in September, a flat budget compared to the FY21 budget. And that amount was $32,704,000 and some change. And although we did not request additional funds at that time, we do have several critical funding needs for FY22 that we'd like to discuss and present to you today. Last year, we sustained a budget reduction of about 11% or just over $4 million. We are respectfully requesting that the committee consider restoring a portion of those funds to our FY22 budget. Restoring those funds will not only ensure we have sufficient funds to address the anticipated increase in audit work due to the additional CARES Act funding, but will assist us in moving forward with some of the initiatives we were focused on prior to the pandemic. Most of that $4 million in reductions last year was accomplished by giving up funds associated with unfilled positions that were purposefully held open to meet the requested budget reductions and to mitigate furloughing current employees. I think we turned in a budget, we didn't furlough anybody in that budget. We took the budget cuts. So we are requesting about $650,000 be restored for our financial audit staff. In the near term, that staff will be used to address the additional workload related to the CARES Act funds and other stimulus money. And over time, when those federal funds return to normal levels, which I think is going to be 2 or 3 years, the staff will return to previous plans to increase our audit coverage across state agencies. And given the continued loss of talent in key financial management positions, such as throughout state government, such oversight is critical for both agency management and state leadership. And 2 points I want to make about the federal audit work that we do. First, it's important work. We're required to do it. And over the last year, we identified over $53 million in question costs. Second, I want to point out that most of the federal audit work that we perform is paid for by the related auditee, who should be using a portion of the administrative funds of the audited grants to pay for those services. Excuse me. So each year we bill those agencies for the federal audit work that we perform, and we remit the funds that we collect back to the Treasury. From a performance auditor perspective, I would like to request an additional $420,000 be restored for the performance audit staff. Again, these were positions that we were planning to fill, but were used to avoid placing existing staff on furloughs. A little bit about our performance audits. Those are different from our financial audit reports in that we are not issuing audit opinions, but rather they frequently identify improvements that make state programs more cost effective. So for example, over the last 10 years, at least 40 of our audit reports have contained recommendations that could lead to well over 100 million in potential cost savings or additional state revenues each year. And some of those dollars have already been realized. At the end of my presentation, I actually have a handout of the examples of the performance audit work to present to you. And while I think our performance auditors pay for themselves through identified cost savings and revenue enhancements, performance audits also have a positive impact on state government. Over 85% of our findings and recommendations are acted upon by the time of our follow-up audits. These impacts include improved operations and outcomes, changes in legislation, budgetary changes, cost savings, revenue enhancements, and fraud, waste, and abuse identification. In terms of operating expenses, move on to those. We are asking for $350,000 to be restored to our FY22 budget. In FY21, we reduced our IT budget by $550,000. As part of that, our budget reduction efforts, we found about $200,000 of that in permanent reductions. But in order, again, to minimize the impact of furloughs of our staff, we encumbered $350,000 of FY21 license renewals in FY20. So to meet our ongoing IT commitments for FY22 and beyond, we are requesting that those funds be restored to our IT operating budgets. Lastly, with respect to operating expenses, we just completed an analysis of moving certain parts of our IT infrastructure into the cloud. Excuse me. We identified long-term reductions in costs and eliminates the need to replace several expensive servers that are nearing the end of life. We are requesting $50,000 for our IT budget to cover estimated ongoing cloud storage costs that do not exist today. And my last request is very similar to what you've heard from other agency heads throughout the session, I think, in terms of overall pay and the impact it is having on attracting and retaining talent. We have a great professional staff of public servants at the department, but loyalty only goes so far without some consistency in future pay increases. And I know I sound like a broken record because I've come before you many times over the last several years to request funds to support a market-based salary pay adjustment. Some details. In 2017, we conducted a salary study. We found that all of our auditor salaries throughout the organization were significantly below the market. In fact, they were 5 to 20% below the bottom quartile of the market, depending on what position you were looking at. We find ourselves not only competing with other CPA firms for college hires, but other state auditor shops in neighboring states, some of which who are offering $2,000 or $3,000 more for starting salaries for these same new hires we're competing for. In addition, we continue to have turnover at our mid-career levels and are losing staff to clients who offer higher pay and in many cases, better retirement benefits. Our most recent cost estimate to adjust starting salaries and address the related compression issues throughout the organization is $2.1 million. We talked about that again, this in prior sessions. This amount would place us just below the bottom quartile of the market. We recognize this is a significant number. However, the competitive gap only increases with each year that passes and will have detrimental and long-term lasting effects on the organization if left unaddressed. We have made tremendous strides over the past several years to become more efficient and improve the timeliness of our work. However, the loss of skilled staff will reverse many of those achievements. So we welcome the opportunity to continue the dialogue. We know that's a large number and will provide copies of our study and supporting calculations if requested and needed. Please let us know how we can help you help the staff of the department. So to summarize for you, we are asking for around 36% of last year's budget reduction to be restored for critical activities. That's exclusive of the salary pay adjustment. With that, sir, thank you for the opportunity to present to you today, and be glad to take any questions you may have.
All right. Well, thank you, Greg. I appreciate your honesty and letting us know what you need. That's why we're here. We'll go ahead and start a few questions here. Chairman Barr, is that you?
Mike 4.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Good to see you again, sir. A couple of questions, if I might. The 650,000, I believe I understood you. That is for new hires.
That is correct.
Okay. And then overall, how many employees in your department?
We have roughly 200. I usually say 250.
250 to 260 is what we currently have on staff right now.
Okay, very good.
And the
so
majority of those are auditors.
Uh-huh.
20 or so are the real estate appraisers,
Okay.
and a few in the admin department.
So the 2.1 million for salary adjustments, would that be across the board, or is that specifically to adjusters or investigators?
The
Auditors. Sorry, I'll get it right.
That's correct. That number is only for the auditors. That's, again, the study we did was just on the auditor positions.
Okay. And how many folks is that, if I might?
Out of the 260 employees that we have, approximately 230 of them are auditors and or appraisers.
Okay. Very good. And the final is the way that you presented the asks. Is that in order of need or no particular order?
They were in particular the order would be priority order.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. And you may not have the answer to this, but, our state has received a lot of CARES money, several billion, I think.
That's correct.
I can only imagine how hard of a task that will be to audit. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you find an error, the money has to be paid back.
In most cases, that's correct.
Right.
Yes.
And that's part of the 650 request there is to basically oversee the audit
The
of
auditing of that. Yes, sir.
several $billion
Yes, sir.
that we need to make sure that we spent
That is-
correctly.
That is correct. We've got funds coming into state agencies, higher education, institutions of higher ed, and many, if not all, of the local school boards are receiving inflows of stimulus funds as well.
Okay.
All of those are subject to audit under the Federal Single Audit Act.
Okay. And the performance audit, you mentioned that there was, you had performed over 40 of those and had generated a possible savings of
100 million
$100 million
potential
potential, $100 million.
if acted on. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Greg, I don't see any lights. So you did a great job and appreciate you, letting us know what your needs are and, understand how serious, all this is and how needed all of this is. So we'll continue to work through it. Appreciate the job that y'all do over there. And, that's all I got. Any
Thank you
closing
very-
comments or you good to go?
Thank you very, very much. We appreciate your consideration.
All right, thank y'all. Committee, that's gonna be it for today. I know it's kind of short and sweet. We, again, don't have a lot of changes here, but got some stuff we need to work on. I do want to thank David and Miss Sheila and Media Services for getting everything worked out for us where we could be here in person and be online as well. Continue to look out for the emails and texts. We tried to get these meetings, expedited and go ahead and knocked out because I know a lot of y'all have got other committees that are going to be meeting and things are going to get hectic before too much longer. So we were just trying to, yes, Greg,
I'm sorry. I have a handout that I wanted, if David will help me. This lists the various reports that support the 100 million. So for your leisurely reading. So
thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. And if nobody's got anything else, we'll be adjourned and just look out for the notice on the next one. Thank y'all for being here.